Steelers have a hidden gem as with their third round pick, they pick a star in the draft. My name is Peyton Kleppe, and on today's episode of Steelers Digest, we'll be breaking down the latest Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis about the Pittsburgh Steelers. As the Pittsburgh Steelers look to star-stud their offense, they've added a ton of weapons this offseason. Before we get into the latest reports, if you guys aren't currently subscribed to this channel, click that subscribe button down below. Only 9% of our current viewers are actually currently subscribed. So if you click that subscribe button, we will get you the latest Pittsburgh Steelers news daily. Let's get right into it. The Pittsburgh Steelers have picked a star with their third round pick. Their third round pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers did select Kaleb Johnson at the running back position coming out of Iowa. This guy, he already knows what it's like to play in the black and gold, and he's coming to Pittsburgh, This guy is built like Le'Veon Bell, but he also plays like Najee Harris and Le'Veon Bell. I'm super excited that the Pittsburgh Steelers were able to get this guy. Obviously, there was a lot of running backs that did go off the board early. Obviously, Ashton Jeanty went to the Raiders at number 6, the number 6 pick in the draft. That guy's a stud. There's a reason why he's getting paid the second most in the NFL, right behind Saquon Barkley. Obviously, I do expect him to have a great season. But coming out of North Carolina after him, Omar Hampton did go off the board to the Chargers. He will be playing with our old buddy Najee Harris in Los Angeles with the Chargers, Good for them, but I'm glad we get Kaleb Johnson in the third round. He did slip. I thought this guy was going to slip, or I did not think this guy was going to slip. I thought he was going to head out of the draft in the second round, but obviously he was there in the third round when the Pittsburgh Steelers did pick. They did select him. And, at Iowa, this dude was a beast. In his senior season, he rushed for over 1,500 yards on 240 attempts with 21 total touchdowns. So, this guy, he knows what it's like to ball. He's coming from a team that he already had a lot of success for, and he fits pretty well in the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Like I said, he's built like a Le'Veon Bell type running back at 6'1", and around probably 215, 220, around that range. This guy's coming in, and he's going to take that number 1 running back, number 2 running back position, It's definitely going to be up for grabs as Jaylen Warren will be filling in there while Najee Harris did head to the Chargers. But, that number 1 running back position will definitely be up for grabs. And, I could see Kaleb Johnson taking it and, starting for us as a rookie. I do like Jaylen Warren, but he is a kind of guy that you're going to have to put him in on those second and third downs, more of those explosive plays. I don't know if he's an every down kind of running back, but hey, he could prove me wrong. Jaylen Warren has had a ton of success in every single offense he's played for, and he's played for a bunch of different offensive coordinators and played in a bunch of different offenses since he's been in Pittsburgh. It really does not matter who you put this guy with at quarterback. He's still going to ball, and, hopefully he has his best season this year. I'm not counting out Jaylen Warren. I do believe in this guy, and I do believe he can have a ton of success, especially now that Najee is gone. Jaylen Warren is a guy that is undrafted, so, Najee Harris was a first-round pick, so sometimes that does end up becoming a deciding factor in the amount of play you're going to get. Obviously, a guy that's getting paid a few $1,000s, not a few thousand, a few $100,000 versus a first-round pick who's already getting a pretty significant amount of coin. Playing time was really deciding factor on where they were picked. But, Kaleb Johnson is a guy that I am very excited for. And I do think he will fit in very well into our offense, who no matter who will be under center. I do think Kaleb Johnson's going to have a ton of success because our offensive line, we have a lot of young guys that I do think will take that second year step in their second year. Troy Fontanu, we did pick him in the first round. Broderick Jones, he did have his fair share of ups and downs last year, but he is a solid player that can develop, and I do like the Pittsburgh Steelers and how they seem to develop their offensive line by keeping the same couple guys together, those same core guys, But, we still got Zach Frazier at center. He was a guy that could have made the Pro Bowl last year, debatably, if he did not get hurt. I really did like Mason Frazier and his play, or Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick was our right guard last year. He played pretty well as well, so I'm very excited for that offensive line. I do think Kaleb Johnson's going to have some success behind them because, We brought in 2 receiver number ones this year, this offseason. We brought in DK Metcalf, obviously, at that number 2 wide receiver position. We did trade a second-round pick for him, but he definitely opens up the middle of the field, definitely opens up some running lanes. You're going to have to double cover DK or George Pickens. You got to pick your poison, but you're going to have to double cover one of them. Both those guys are playmakers, dogs that are going to make some plays down the field, no matter who's under center, whether it's going to be Will Howard, or it's going to be Mason Rudolph, or it's going to be Aaron Rodgers. No matter who's under center, I do believe Kaleb Johnson will have some success. And, like I said, Jaylen Warren as well is going to have a ton of success, but Kaleb Johnson, this guy could be a star in the NFL. Running backs aren't really a position that you have to really go at early, so taking him in the 3rd round is kind of a steal for us. And, another player that did go into the 2nd and 3rd round that had a lot of success for us was Le'Veon Bell. I don't want to compare this guy to Le'Veon. Obviously, Le'Veon did have a ton of success before he ended his career in New York, obviously, but after his big holdout, which has really changed the running game market. But, Kaleb Johnson has a ton of potential. He's a young guy, and I think with Arthur Smith, with our young receivers, with our young offensive line, with Coach Tomlin, I do think if we put this guy in the right position and if he does stay healthy, he's going to have a ton of success. If you watch this guy's film, he breaks a ton of tackles. He can catch the ball. He can run hard. He's fast. He's a guy that the Pittsburgh Steelers have been looking for in the past couple years. Obviously, Najee Harris, when we drafted him, he did have a lot of success his first year with Big Ben under center. He had 1,200 rushing yards, I believe, with a pretty good amount of receiving yards as well, like 400 or 500 receiving yards. About 10 total touchdowns, but since that rookie year, he definitely started to decline, definitely started to look like he was running in mud. A lot of Steelers fans were definitely complaining, definitely thought he was very slow, but I think Kaleb Johnson is a guy that's not really going to have that problem. Obviously, he's had a ton of success in college, and I do think it will translate into the NFL if the Pittsburgh Steelers can keep him healthy and put him in good positions to win. But back to Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren is a guy that, we picked him up as an undrafted free agent out of, I believe, Snow College, a small school. And this guy was not projected to have a lot of success in the NFL. He was a guy that made the roster as an undrafted free agent and a few years ago. I believe in the 2021 season when we did pick Najee Harris in the 1st round. It was also Jaylen Warren's rookie year, and he's had a ton of success since his rookie year. He did deal with some injuries last year, but, when this guy is on the field, he's a gadget guy. He can do it all. He's super fast, super explosive. So either way, I do expect Jaylen Warren to have a ton of success, but hopefully Kaleb Johnson can complement that. That is all I have for you guys tonight on Steelers Digest. If you guys are not already currently subscribed, click that subscribe button down below. Thank you so much. Here we go, Steelers. Peace out.